I'm Mike Uyak. I love to try new things, and I've had culinary adventures all around the world, as well as right at home. I've had really wonderful food, as well as some really horrible food. I'd like to share some of my adventures with you, and we'll see if I have what it takes to fix whatever goes wrong. This is Recipe Redemption. Greetings and salutations, everyone, and welcome back to another edition of Recipe Redemption, and a little experiment today. Behold, 2 chickens, both alike in dignity. Or are they? The one here on your right, with the string tied around its leg, weighing in at 6 pounds 3 ounces, is the current leading champion, factory farm chicken from the grocery store. It is locally sourced. It is a local factory farm, but it's still factory farmed. The other one on your left comes from a smaller farm called Bayview Farms. Gotta put that down because it's getting heavy. Weighing in at just shy of 5 pounds. And they subscribe to a different philosophy. They've chosen to raise their animals, and they have chickens, they have Wagyu beef, they have sheep, they have turkeys, and they have followed the Polyface Farms Joel Salatin model for livestock husbandry, meaning that they rotate the cows from one field to the next, day after day, and they have a mobile chicken coop that follows them. So the chickens get to actually graze in the same fields, and all of the bugs that get either sort of dug up as the cows graze, or the fly larvae that are attracted to all the manure the cows leave behind, that becomes an enriching part of the chicken's diet. And they believe that because they're not being fed a whole bunch of grain, and in particular corn, which is not really their natural diet, they're happier, they're healthier, and as a result, they become a tastier bird. We're going to put that to the test today. So I'm going to treat these chickens exactly the same way. I'm spraying down with some olive oil. This is just one of those aerosolizers that you pump up with air and allow you to spray stuff out. Make sure that I have a nice coating, nice light coating of olive oil on the outside so the skin crisps up, hopefully. Going to use this silicone brush to just sort of spread it out and make sure it's nice and evenly distributed across the skin. You'll notice both the chickens are sitting on top of a mirepoix. That's onion, carrot, and celery. Figure the drippings will help flavor the vegetables, and you know, they're considered aromatics for a reason. They will flavor the meat just by being there. A little bit of salt, and that's pretty much it. That's all I'm going to do. After being in the oven for 400 degrees for about 30 minutes, and then for another 30 minutes at 300 degrees, here is first the naturally farmed chicken. And notice the meat is quite firm, and it was firm to the point where I was actually concerned that I had somehow overcooked it. But as I sliced into it, there is still plenty of juice. So it is just naturally firmer meat. That is just something to be aware of. It's fully cooked. It seems to be nice and moist. Yes, I should have used a serrated knife for slicing this chicken breast. And yes, my cleaver is a little sharp, or a little dull, needs to be sharpened. I am aware. But in any case, and just for comparison, I'm going to do light meat and dark meat. So let's get this wing out of the way so we can get to the hind quarter. I'm trying with my blunt cleaver to get the oyster. It's for real chicken aficionados, the
That little bit of muscle tissue right there is the best part of the bird. I didn't entirely succeed, but that's all right. And excuse the lighting. The meat is not as pink as it appears in this lighting. It's just, for whatever reason, the camera makes it look pinker. It's not. And nearly an hour later, here is the factory farmed chicken. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to take some slices of the breast meat, and then I'm going to take one of the hindquarters and compare and contrast. And again, don't be alarmed. For whatever reason, the lighting is making the dark meat look a lot pinker than it really was.
So, let's talk about chicken. The weirdest thing about this experiment is the difference in cooking time. They went into a 400-degree oven for 30 minutes to kind of brown the skin, and then it was turned down to 325 to cook through. The naturally farmed chicken had a nice internal temperature of 145 Fahrenheit in the breast meat after about an hour. But the factory farmed grocery store chicken took another hour to reach that internal temperature and was honestly still slightly pink, even though the thermometer said it was done. And the skin never really browned at all. I have a theory about why this happened. Two reasons, actually. The first is that many, though not all, mass-produced chickens undergo a process called plumping, which sounds like a slang phrase for some sort of internet porn, but it refers to a practice of injecting brine into poultry products to add flavor and increase moisture retention so it remains juicier even if you overcook it a tiny bit. This is the reason you brine a turkey before Thanksgiving. On its face, extra moisture and flavor in the form of seasoning sounds like a good thing, and it's not necessarily bad, but it also means that it weighs more than it did when it left the farm. And for something that is traditionally sold by the pound, you're paying more for the same volume of bird. So even though they looked to be about the same size, the grocery store bird weighed over a pound more. The extra mass means more energy to raise the total mass up to temperature. Also, there's a good chance that the grocery store bird had been previously frozen. So although it seemed on the surface to be nice and thawed, there might have been a chunk of ice in the center that delayed it reaching the final cook temperature. I didn't really look too closely at that. I just threw it in the oven. Now, the important part, eating them. The naturally farmed chicken was firmer overall, and I can't really be sure that this was entirely due to its lifestyle and diet. I don't know if the factory farmed chicken was flabbier or less muscular, if its meat was softer for having been previously frozen and thawed, because ice crystals can break up muscle fibers and even individual cell walls and end up making mushier meat, or some other factor. But the naturally farmed chicken just seemed more substantial, and I don't mean chewy. It had a great texture. It was a very satisfying piece of chicken, but the factory farmed one just seemed softer in comparison. They both, it may can't come as a surprise, tasted like chicken. I know, shocker. The chicken tasted like chicken. The snozberries tasted like snozberries. I only seasoned with salt, pepper, and olive oil, and no other aromatics, no other seasoning. So these were going to be pretty bland chickens, no matter what. There was no adornment whatsoever. I just wanted to see how much chickeny flavor they had, and they both tasted like chicken. If the factory chicken was plumped, the brine didn't noticeably affect the flavor, or I guess without it, it might have been completely flavorless. I don't know. So for your money, neither one would necessarily tasted better than the other to my palate, but the texture was different, slightly. Speaking of money, whole grocery store chickens go for anywhere between $2.50, $5 a pound, depending on where you get it. I've seen them go on sale for as low as 99 cents a pound, though that often means the store has a surplus that they won't be able to sell quickly enough before the bird starts to get too old. The naturally farmed chicken came in at about $11 a pound, so it is a pretty significant expense. Is it worth it? I can't really answer that, especially for you, because there's a lot that goes into that decision. If you accept the argument that the happier, antibiotic-free, more truly free-range bird is actually healthier than the mass-produced bird, and by extension is therefore healthier to eat, then perhaps it's worth it to you to pay more for quality. If you're on a tighter budget, or particularly if you're cooking a dish that is going to cover up the chicken with sauce or cheese or breading or something, and you'd never be able to tell one chicken from the other anyway, maybe the factory farm chicken is good enough for that purpose. That, as they say, is up to you to decide what's right for your lifestyle, your budget, and your menu. So, what do you think? Do you prefer naturally farmed chickens over grocery store ones? Where do you get your poultry from? And are there any other meat products that you'd like me to try and compare a naturally farmed version versus a factory farmed feedlot version? Let me know in the comments below, and let me know what you think. So until next time, I'd like to thank you for watching, and we'll see you here again on Recipe Redemption.